Okay, last time it kicked in a little bit early, so hopefully it kicks in a little bit early tonight. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me this evening are Eeyore.
Hello.
You sound ecstatic, Eeyore. And Adam.
Hello.
How are you both doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for asking.
You should tone it down a little bit. You sound so overflowing with excitement. I'm not sure the listeners will be able to recognize you at the moment.
Yeah, dude.
But if you're able to fight in and get a word in edgewise, Adam, feel free to chime in with how you're doing if Donkey isn't constantly interrupting you in his excitement.
Well, I don't think it would be that much of a problem. Um, but yeah, I'm I'm doing all right. It's Friday. It's the weekend. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing grand. I'm just plating up my dinner, which just finished up in the oven a second ago, and it is looking beautiful. Shall we start off with that and go into what I'm having to eat tonight?
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, it is Sanguine's night, right? I mean, let's at least start off
Exactly.
with what you're cooking, huh?
It is a Friday, so once again, I am the keeper for this evening, Sanguine, and I'm doing rather lovely. I'm having a fantastic dinner that I'm about to plate up. It is prosciutto wrapped chicken breast that was seared off and then finished up in the oven. I have some broccoli that was roasted with a bit of lemon zest, bit of garlic, bit of salt, and then mash, which was done with a dusting of truffle powder, some fresh chives, and is absolutely beautiful as well. Then a quick pan sauce that's going to be spooned over top of the lot of it. So it is going to be a very, very good dinner. Silence is the response.
Oh shit! No, sorry. Setting, getting. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Hey, Spudgun, welcome. Thanks for
Hello,
joining.
Spudgun. How it goes?
And yes, sir, what you just described sounded very delicious.
Yep, just slicing the chicken right now so I can lay it out on the plate. It just finished resting a moment ago. And then once I have all this laid out, I'm going to take my normal picture for next week food porn posts. Sure, Spudgun, you can join. Let me pull up the DMs that way I can.
How do you feel about that, Eeyore?
I feel just grand.
Hey, dude, how come you stopped helping me pick out the picks for the football week?
I helped you enough. And besides, after the last 2 weeks, God, I'm doing terrible myself because of the last 2 weeks.
He's now doubting his own assessment of the matter.
I mean, not to lie, yeah.
Oh, okay, dude. The Jets with Zach Wilson beat the Eagles. How does that happen?
The Eagles played like shit, and the Jets didn't.
Yes.
No, Zach still played pretty shit.
Well,
Their
I'm saying
defense, on the other
comparatively.
hand.
Yeah, but
I'm saying comparatively, they didn't play like shit. Because if one plays kind of like shit and the other's playing like absolute wet dog shit, the kind of like shit's going to win. So comparatively, they didn't play like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how bad do you have to be for Zach to play badly and still lose. I mean,
throw 3 picks and have a fumble in the second half alone.
yeah, apparently that's the first time
Hurts has thrown 3 interceptions in
two
a
in the
single game.
Yes. That's
Yes.
and as a Bungles fan, I mean, I do feel the pain, but yeah.
At the
Sorry.
same time, haha, not my team.
Why, who's your team?
No, I'm saying you said as
A Bungles fan.
Yep.
Yeah. So who's your team, Sanguine?
I can't really watch professional football because I just get pissed off at the line. I played for 12 years. So now anytime that I see a lineman miss a fucking telegraphed blitz and they don't even put a hand on the motherfucker,
Yeah.
I'm pissed off because what the fuck is wrong with you? That was obvious. You should have known that it was coming. You should have been able to at least get a hand over and nudge the guy so that he didn't just run in without any fucking resistance.
And of all tapes, the beggars.
Hey, for the first time in years, we've got an O-line and a quarterback. I mean,
my analysis of the Bengals is it's not the offense that wins them games. It's Lou.
No.
Lou and the defense.
Yeah. I can't argue. You know, but
especially with how 2023 has started.
Yeah. I'm actually going to defend us a little bit here. Right. You've got the fact that Burrow, this last weekend was the first game he played where he actually had some mobility because he's not a pure pocket passer.
No, and that's been self-evident over the first month. And due to the fact that he's been suffering from his strained calf that he got at the start of training camp, he's been forced into that role.
Yeah, and he should never have been. I mean, I think it was season before last was his first. And I was worried that the O-line were going to let him get killed.
I mean, 2021 season in the Super Bowl, they pretty much did let him get killed. Yeah, 9 sacks.
Yeah, fair. That made me sad.
The problem that I have with professional football is the backs. I will say those are the best backs that were or that played. The backs on professional football tend to be really fucking good. They also tend to go down really goddamn easy. Part of that's because the nature of the sport, they're worried about long-term careers, so they aren't willing to play with shit that at any point lower on in their career, they absolutely fucking would. Which, to my mind, ruins some of the charm of football. Because when I played, one of the things that really made the difference between a person that said that they liked playing football and someone that absolutely fucking loved it was how much shit they were willing to go through. If someone made a lot of talk about enjoying playing, but any time that they were looked at wrong, they went down, you knew that that person was a bit of a pussy, you knew that they enjoyed being seen to like football rather than enjoying football. And it's kind of the same thing that soccer has going, where you have a bunch of people going down at the slightest touch, which makes the sport look bad. Football isn't quite at the degree of soccer, but with certain people, it's not terribly far off. But like I said, the backs, they tend to be fantastic. The line, no one invests in a line. Because the thing is that a line is always going to get burnt the shit out. Doesn't matter how good it starts. Give them a few seasons, they're going to need to be replaced.
I will partially dispel what you're saying there, because right now the Eagles, their entire shtick is their O-line. Like, I have seen multiple videos saying that if they lost just Jason Kelsey, they'd fall apart. Like, top 5 pick fall apart.
What I'm saying, though, is that when you look at the amount that they will go out of their way to get a good back, fuck all happens that way when it comes to linemen. There's teams that have much better lines than other teams, but no one invests in the line like they do in backs. And again, it's because there's
typically an unsung position, yes.
Yeah.
And not only is it unsung, but it's one of those positions that if a play goes perfectly, your back won't get touched. They'll be able to get through. They'll be unharmed. If a play goes terribly, they get tackled.
They get crunched.
And if it goes really fucking bad, they get crunched by a lineman.
Yeah. But the thing is, with you're saying that nobody invests in the line. The only lineman that really gets invested in is your blindside tackle. It's normally the blindside tackle specifically, because he's the one that's defending the quarterback from obviously the blindside tackle. You know? So
normally, if someone's going to invest in a line, the lineman that they invest in is the center. Because the center is the second brain of the team.
Yeah, I've heard that due to the fact that the Vikings' top center has been an injury right now, Kirk has been pretty crap on his reads. And I've been told that the center helps Kirk a ton getting his reads right.
Yep. The center is always the second brain of the team, because the QB gets their portion planned out. They decide the play typically, at least if it's a team that's given a fair bit of autonomy. They're the final say on what the play is going to be. They decide what the count's going to be. It's the center that makes sure that the count goes off perfectly. And there's a lot of communication between the center and the QB that is entirely silent.
Oh yeah, just slight little motions and whatnot between the two.
Yep.
Well,
the center tensing up in a specific way, dropping their ass just a little bit lower, shit like that can signal. Because if a center is kind of dropping their ass a little bit lower, they're expecting to get pressed and pressed hard. So that tells the QB, oh shit, something's coming up the gut, because the center reads the line.
Or sees linebackers or the corners ready to come in as well.
Yeah.
They read the defense, and as much as the QB reads, the center gets better at it and gets more of a sense of, oh shit.
Well, the center gets a feel more than the quarterback does, because the quarterback's looking for different things.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's the thing that you miss. As a quarterback, you're looking for your matchups, and then you're going to go through your sequence of who you're looking for to pass to. You're thinking about your counts.
Meanwhile, the center, and to a lesser extent, Spud is exactly right. The left tackle typically is the blind side.
Yeah.
also needs to look for that. Like, if there's a quarter blitz coming from the left side, well, the LT has to be ready for that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And to add more credence to what you said, Jason Kelsey is the center for the Eagles. And I fully agree with that analysis.
And the other main thing that you really invest in a center for is, especially if you have a center. So there's different teams that do this different ways. So a really fucking good center, they're the center. It doesn't matter if it's a long snap, if it's a standard snap, whatever the fuck is going
pistol.
on.
Yeah.
Yep. Doesn't matter what the fuck's going on, they're your center. And that takes a fuck ton of skill in order to get down. If you've ever looked at different long snaps, especially if you watch other ages, so not just the professionals, but
you're talking college ball,
college and high school, you'll see a massive difference between how good a center is in how they snap. The center is the one that makes sure that a fumble doesn't happen off the snap. If they get their hands right, that fumble will not happen. The QB's hands could be half frozen and not working right, and a good center will still get that ball firmly in their hands.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It might be fumbled after the snap, but in that snap it won't be.
I still had the run through of. Do you remember the butt fumble?
I'm trying to remember. That's
Mark Sanchez, New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember the butt fumble?
I've only been watching sports seriously since 2019. Football period since 2014.
Oh no! Hang on. Right.
Going to find the video to share with them.
I'm going to find the video, and oh god, it's got talking in it.
Oh, it was before I even started watching football period.
Yeah, it was 2012. But bear with me a second.
Mm-hmm.
I will drop a link, and
I have heard of it though.
You have heard of it. Yes.
When a lineman's invested in, it's going to typically be the center. Yeah. And that's a different sort of investment than other linemen. But
yeah,
most linemen aren't invested in because it doesn't matter if the play goes well or if the play goes poorly. Every fucking play, that lineman is getting hit by a 250 to 300 plus pound other lineman.
Yes.
So there's no long-term preserving lineman, which is why a bunch of teams look at them as like, yeah, we'll get a good one if we can. But
we're not going to kill ourselves for it. We're not going to wreck the team for it.
We're not going to make it a first-round pick. It's always going to be much lower down.
I've seen line go in the first round. The Cardinals famously picked up line first round the past draft.
Which, when it happens, that becomes massive news rather than...
The biggest pieces of news from the first round of the 2023 draft were Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson going so early. Running backs typically never go in the first round in recent years. And that was two in the first round this year.
Because the game has shifted. It's
it's shifting back. Due to the mastery of the anti-pass two deep safety scheme, those big passes like Patrick Mahomes to Hill for 30 plus yards plus another 20 after the catch don't happen anymore, period.
Well, yeah, they're very rare now. I mean, it's like it's all these dinky little check downs now.
Yep, nickel and dime, bring those safeties down to counter the nickel and dime and then pull a big one out.
Yeah, because if you notice,
It's frustrated the hell out of the big passers. I know Jamar Chase has been pissed off. Devontae Adams has been pissed off.
Yeah. Well, Jamar was barely targeted in the first 5 games, and now that Burrow's got that mobility back. Now Burrow has that mobility back. It's like he's able to play it and target Chase a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but like you say, it is Lua. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm not even gonna try.
I just call him Lou or sometimes Lou Didi.
Yeah, because the way he runs that defense, a lot of the trouble we had over the first 6 weeks was that we couldn't score.
Mm-hmm.
To get that break.
And I will openly say this: your 2 wins with the Bengals, Lou.
Yeah.
Versus the Rams, the fact that it was basically a second half shutout, and for some reason Sean McVay wasn't going to the run game, period, just made the Rams fall apart. The Cardinals, well, that was a more standard win. And the Seahawks, look at how much trouble Lou gave Gino in the red zone.
Well, he basically shut him down. I mean,
the moment he got within the 20-yard line, it was no.
This far and no further, and it's 3 wins we've got this season. We are 3-3.
Yeah, I forgot you got a third one. Oddly enough, all 3 have been against the NFC West. Can you please do all 4? that fourth one though. Ooh. Because by that point, that's going to be a healthy San Francisco.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
Are we? Oh crap, we're playing them next weekend.
Wait, it's next weekend?
Yeah, it's our bye week.
I thought they had a bye next week in San Fran.
No, 29th of October. And it's at Candlestick. I don't care. I know they don't play
Levi's, you mean?
It's at Candlestick. Fuck off.
Fair enough.
Sorry, it's right, because right, I used to watch the NFL in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But I'd never really had a team. And then I picked it up again and started following my late ex-wife's team, which was the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been with them since.
Mm. Oh, I didn't think that the Bengals 49ers game was that soon. Then you are probably in luck. Debo is probably still going to be down for that. But CMC is going to be back by then. I hate to say it.
It's one of those fuck moments, isn't it?
Well, the Browns managed to beat them, so...
Yeah, fair.
And Lou definitely has a good enough defense to, if he can shut down Christian McCaffrey, I think Burrow can put up enough.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully having the week off, Burrow is going to be a little bit better. He's going to be fully rested and whatnot. Because we can't. No, we can't do it.
Can't what?
We can't let San Fran beat us.
Oh, yeah, because Okay, 3-3 through 6 weeks. I think right now the Bengals can definitely still make the postseason. Winning the division is going to be difficult, though, at this point.
Yes, because we've got beaten by haven't all three of our losses. Sorry, I'm just double checking now. Scores.
I believe 2 of the losses have been within the division. Yeah, 2 of the losses and the Titans.
Yeah, because we haven't played
the Steelers yet.
Steelers we've got end of November, and then at
right around Christmas.
2 days before Christmas. Because I don't like that when they put the games close together. It's like 1, 2, 3. There's like a 3-week gap in between us.
You mean playing division rivals back to back?
Yeah, I don't like playing them that close together. I don't like it that we playing the same team that close together. You know, if you look at us, they've got like we play the Ravens, the Steelers, the Jags, the Colts, Vikings, Steelers, and then we've got the Browns as the last game of the season.
Johnny seems to be mourning the Green Bay.
Sorry, Johnny, but Jordan Love is probably not the next Hall of Famer.
You never know. No.
What are you saying that his second year as a starter, he's going to make some big jump?
No. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll make a jump, but it won't be anything big. I mean, generally, you see something you generally see something in a player in that first year or two.
You tend to, but every now and then you get a surprise. You'll get someone that had a hell of a lot of promise the first year, and then they just shit up the second, and you have others where that first year they didn't live up, and then they really put their ass into it and shored up their game.
Exactly. I mean, like I say, look at Brady. You know, he should have been all the way through, and he's like, holy shit.
Now,
it
depends on if the QB learns from their mistakes or if they don't, or any player for that matter. If they learn from
I
their
will
mistake,
say a couple things about Brady, though. 3 of his rings are because of Bill Belichick's defense, at least.
Yes.
I will not contest that. Which 3? I don't know. Probably the early 3.
Well,
and he didn't have a bad defense with Tampa either, so.
No, but the thing is, he had he had the Tock game.
Oh, the Tock rule.
So, yeah, that's the one. Because that was an absolute... there are words, but I know I've got to be careful. You know, I don't want us getting banned.
It's one of those things that, like I said, I wish that there was some reason for them to invest in line more. Because the normal NFL lineman is not the best lineman. Not even close. Whereas the normal NFL back is probably the best back.
But again, it's because over the last few years, there's been that shift away from the backs. It's all about being about the wideouts and tight ends. You know, it's all about being your catch players.
Yep,
Jeez,
but
you say wideouts and tight ends, yet your team gave away probably one of the best tight ends they had in a long while. Poor Hurst. And I say that knowing Hurst wasn't T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, but when those two were covered, Hurst was typically right there for you.
But again, it comes down to line is just left to almost rot, which is why it's so difficult as a former lineman to watch professional ball, because I am constantly seeing them do something that I'm going, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this shit? You shouldn't. What the fuck? And it's absolute murder for that. I'm constantly watching them make or miss a blitz that I'm going, they're going to blitz here.
Yeah, you've got
and
that
they don't
feel.
fucking see it. Yeah. And like I said, it's something that you learn when you play that, that's obviously going to be a blitz. It takes time. It takes a fair bit of skill. But once you start seeing it, it is hard not to see it, and it pisses you off when other people don't see it. Especially when you're going, come on, you're getting paid how much fucking money? Do this!
Raw. Sorry.
But
no, you're right. You're watching it and you're like, oh, come on, for Christ's sake. So, yeah.
Especially since I remember playing, and I remember the shit that I would do in order to make sure that I picked up blitzes. I did stupid shit that it was relying on my size and strength, but at the same time, there were other ways of doing it. I just did it the way that I did it because I fucking could.
Mm.
So I don't expect every lineman to be able to pick up 2-3 linemen and a blitz. That takes something fucking freakish in order to do. But again, just at least give them a nudge on the side as they go. You don't have to tie them up entirely. You don't have to just completely manhandle several players at once.
Sometimes
all you have to
just
do
that
is get a
bump,
hand on them.
that bump can be more than enough to throw them off.
Yep.
You know?
And I can actually speak towards a bit of offensive scheming right there. If you've noticed, especially last year and less so this year because the Chiefs line has become a little bit better, Jerick McKinnon has consistently saved Patrick so many times. He's a running back, typically sits back with him, and half the time he's just watching, where's the break in the line? Grab him just for a second, and Pat's gone. He's halfway across the field. And that's a running back doing that job.
Yeah, all it takes is just that half of a second of stumble, that little bit, because backs are fairly well built. They're fairly fast. They can hit pretty damn hard. Backs are nowhere near as large as linemen. A lineman just giving a good solid shove, even if it's just right as he's passing by, just hitting him with your arm, that back is going to react. That back is going to have a second or two of wobble leg before he gets him underneath himself again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be enough to let a play go. Hello, Sora. How goes?
Hello, good afternoon, evening.
Hello, Sora Luna. Long time
Whatever
no
time
chat.
of day it happens to be.
Relevant time of day of
Yeah.
exhaustion.
Where is Badger? Sorry.
So how are you doing today, Sora?
Very, very happy it is a Friday. It's been a long week here for us, so
Bit of a rough one.
I don't know. It's just like everyone's being crazy and needy, and altogether, the first real rain, and nobody knows how to drive. It's like the whole city went in lock madness. I don't know, for a whole week, but
You
that's good.
always have to be somewhat amazed at people's abilities to forget how to drive in various weather that is common in that area.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
we had some deaths on the road, like hit and runs, and
Damn.
yeah, I know.
yeah,
Yeah,
what
but-
Sora's not telling you is everybody survived the crash. She just started beating people up.
Just picked them off after they got out of their car.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I've had road rage so intense. I'd be like, if the only thing that's keeping me from just ramming the car in front of me is the fact I like my car,
Oh,
and
I've
I'd go
told
to
you.
jail, and I
So,
don't want. I don't
told-
think I can do jail.
I told you about the most infuriated I ever was behind the wheel of a car, right?
I believe you did. Yes.
So, for those who don't know, I was driving into work one night, and I was living in Northern Virginia, DC area at the time. They were doing road construction. So, narrowed down to one lane. Slow as can be through that one lane, as always. And then I see the road open up ahead. And I'm thinking, yes, fucking fantastic. I'll be able to hit that open spot and vroom. As I'm about to get there, I see the 4 cars directly in front of me split into the 4 lanes of the highway. Not a single fucking one speeds up.
Oh yeah. Fuck them. Just
They're still traveling at like maybe 10 miles an hour on a 65. Spread across the entire 4 lanes. It's at the point where I am legitimately considering throwing my car into auto, unbuckling, hopping out of my car, jogging up to the car in front of me, ripping that person out of it, give them a couple kicks, throw them off to the side, and turn their car's wheel into one of the other motherfuckers traveling at 10 miles an hour.
That would have probably done the world a service.
Yeah, and then I just would have had to wait for my car to catch up to me. Once it catches up to me, climb back in, start fucking going again.
I've had homicidal thoughts where I was like, the states where people carry guns on them and step out of the car when there's disputes on the road with them, and I kind of understand, okay?
Yep.
There were moments where it's just like, That being said, someone actually let their intrusive thoughts win, and so they took a corner onto a very busy street. This was a couple of days ago. Broad daylight, okay, middle of the day. Took it too quick, obviously cut off a pedestrian. Pedestrian got angry, smacked their hand against the car, saying, "Hey, what the hell? I have right of way, lights and everything." So the guy decided he didn't like that, so he literally hit and then ran over the pedestrian. It was such a big butt, like from the video, because of course there's video of this. The back of his 4x4 lifted like a couple feet in the air as they went over this guy.
Holy
So-
sh!
So the guy was still alive, just severely damaged, and obviously the other man got arrested at the scene, thankfully, and they didn't run off. But it was just like, yeah, that's letting the intrusive thoughts win, and that's not a good idea in this day and age.
Yeah.
Well,
No, it was amazing just watching that. And we have no fault insurance now here, because of course we do. They hate people, so I'm wondering if they're going to blame the pedestrian, and it's the guy is just going to get a slap on the wrist. Because
You can answer that question rather simply. What race was the person who ran the other guy over?
And what
I
race
don't
was
know,
the
because they
person who got
never
ran over?
they no longer show any pictures of anything. Anybody who commits a crime, there's never any
Yeah.
pictures.
We know
But the
why.
question then is, Sora, do they still list the race without showing the pictures? Because
No,
if
because
they never show the pictures, but they'll always mention when it's a white guy. That just tells you what it is every other time.
well, of course, that was the funny thing. Like back in the day with the trucks of peace and everything, they stopped,
Yep.
or the knives of peace and all that sort of stuff. They stopped saying things, and everyone said, "Okay, well, we know exactly where these people were coming from." They're like, no, you're just a racist for doing that. I'm like, well, you could have hit it by just or stop this kind of jokey, not joke, by just reporting the news.
Yeah,
But no.
You could have reported the news the
You
same
report the
way
facts.
every fucking time,
Hmm.
and you can either choose that you'll report every time who committed the crime, or every time you leave that information out. Now, I think that it's particularly disgusting when they choose not to give the demographics of someone who is at large.
Oh, they do that here all the time. It is absolutely, and they'll say something like, "Oh, someone extremely violent person is in the area," or someone has. It might take a day or so for them to be like to give a bit more of information.
Yeah.
Or
It
you'll
should be
say,
that if-
"Oh, someone has been released." So here, once you know, even if a crime is considered pretty heinous, if they've served their time, they're released back into the public, right? Usually with needing to check in with a parole officer or be in a group home or something like that. But they're released into the community, and the community, kind of depending on the crime, will know about it either a week before it happens or months after it happens.
Yep.
And everyone, because they don't want people to protest and petition not to have them in their neighborhood.
Yeah, and the thing that drives me crazy, because there's been stats done on what increases the rate of recidivism and what doesn't. So one of the main things that increases the rate of recidivism drastically is if the person returns to their neighborhood that they lived in prior to the incident. This makes absolute fucking sense. The fact that people are confused by this baffles me endlessly. Because if you're a criminal, there's a good chance that the vast majority of people that you know are criminals. So if you return to your neighborhood where everyone that you know there is a criminal, the chance of you committing a crime again goes up drastically. No fucking shit. If everyone you know is a doctor, there's a high probability you're a doctor as well.
Sounds like birds of a feather stuff to me.
Yeah, and it's partially that, partially, like I said, you get back into the habits. You return to the same area, you get back into the habits, you hang out with the same people that you hung out with before, you do the same shit that you did before, and that includes, eventually, you do the same crimes that you did before, or you step them up. One of the things that has been shown to be a massive decrease in recidivism is if you stick the person into a different neighborhood, not necessarily a different sort of neighborhood, but just a different neighborhood, the rate of recidivism plummets because they don't have all those contacts. They don't know the person to contact in order to get drugs again. They don't know the person to contact in order to get in on a heist or a robbery or shit like that. Or to get back into the gang.
Can I drop a clank in here?
Go.
Right. You'll also find one of the biggest causes of recidivism is the fact that, particularly in like the US and Canada, right? Once you've committed a criminal act, you're never allowed to forget it. Okay, it's on your record, every job you ever apply for, so on and so forth. You have to basically words.
That is less
yeah.
true when you look into the stats
Right.
on it. Because,
Well-
for instance, have you ever heard the term off paper?
Mm-mm.
No.
So you're able to have been a felon and then get a job as a correction officer in a prison. There's one rule about that. You have to have gone off paper. If you're able to stay outside of a prison, outside of any sort of arrest or jail for a specific period of time, you're considered off paper.
Right,
It
okay,
purges your record.
that's
With the
actually
Again?
yeah, I was going to say that's something we've got. It's the rehabilitation of offenders.
Yep.
And basically what happens is, depending on the length of your sentence,
Yep.
okay, and the type of your crime, okay, there are basically three options. One, it becomes spent after 5 years. That's basically where, unless it's within a select group of jobs, for example, working with vulnerable people, working in high security stuff, then it becomes moot. You don't have to disclose it, right? Then the other one is it becomes spent after 10 years, and then the other option is it never becomes spent.
Yeah,
Okay.
for American sentences, for American convicts, it's
Yeah.
called going off paper. And there's only a very specific sort of crime that never goes off paper. Sexual offenses never go off paper.
See here, anything sexual, anything murder related, or anything that you're given over 4.5 years for, never go off paper.
Yeah, for us, it's if you had to sign up to the sexual offender registry, you're always on the sexual offender registry. There is never going to be a situation where you aren't having to sign up for the sex offender registry. So that's always going to be on your record. If you spend enough time with pretty much any other type of sentence, you were dealing drugs, you can go off paper. You murdered someone, you can go off paper. It takes you not reoffending in a specific time frame. So the way that it works is you serve your time. And depending on the area, the amount of time that you serve is anywhere between 50 to 100% of your sentence time. Because some areas have it where if you serve 50% of your time, you're able to get out on parole. Not guaranteed that you'll get out on parole, but you're able to apply for and get out on parole.
We have two different things. We have parole, which you're eligible for at the halfway point, as in you're eligible to try and get parole. And then you have something called license, which if your sentence is under 4.5 years, you serve half your sentence and then you get out on license. If your sentence is over 4.5 years, then you're out on license at 2/3, but then you're able to apply for parole at the halfway point. So basically, license is an automatic release for not being a dick, not getting any extra time.
So for U.S. court or U.S. prisons, the way that it works is you have, depending on the state and depending on what you're in for, you're eligible for parole somewhere in between normally 50% and 75% of your time served. Then you end up, if you're able to get parole, you go out on parole. You have to serve out your entire parole. After parole, there's still a short report period. Then after that, you're outside of parole and you're outside of your reporting period. I think it's if you're able to remain completely clean for a year to 2 years, you're considered off paper. At which point, if you want to become a corrections officer, you can become a corrections officer.
I don't like that.
It's something that gives us pause as well. There's other restrictions that go into it. So, for instance, if you've served time within a specific prison system, you cannot be a correction officer within that prison system.
So, for example, if you were in the federal pound me in the ass prison, you'd never be able to work in the federal prison system. Or
you would
if
never
you were
be able to work in that region's federal prison system, because the way that federal prisons work is that they're split into regions.
Right, okay.
So if you're in, let's say, the Northeast federal prison system, then you go off paper and you apply to be a corrections officer. You might be able to become a federal corrections officer, but you'll be a federal corrections officer that is able to work in the Southwest, for instance.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
So it moves you away from anyone that you might have had association with. And it's a similar thing when it goes the other way around, where you have a correction officer that then gets sentenced to time in corrections, gets sentenced to prison time. They aren't able to serve that prison time in a system that they worked in. Right. So if a New York corrections officer is sentenced to prison time, they can be sent to New Jersey. They can be sent to Pennsylvania. They can be sent to any state other than New York.
Right,
because
okay.
Since they worked in New York, they aren't allowed to go to a New York prison.
Okay.
This also tends to be how it works for police officers. So, for instance, the police officer that was sentenced to prison time due to the Minneapolis shit, he ended up going to, I think, Wisconsin.
Oh God, St. George of Floyd.
Yeah, Chauvin, the cop that was found guilty of that and sentenced to prison. Mm-hmm. I think he was sent to Wisconsin. He will never serve in Minnesota prisons because he was a Minnesota police officer. Yeah. So he served in Minnesota. He can't be in the prisons in Minnesota. It opens them up to horrendous abuse within the prison system.
Oh, hell yeah. And I mean, he's going to be on Rule 42.
Administrative segregation.
Yeah. He's going to be segregated out. And the thing is, if you're on segregation, it doesn't matter what you do. If Gen Pop get hold of you, they're going to hurt you. Doesn't matter what you've done.
And the way that it works is so I was a corrections officer. I've said this before. So this is part of the reason why I know all this shit about how the correction system works. It wasn't that I served in a corrections facility. It was that I was on the other side of the bars.
Well, technically you did.
I didn't serve time. I served the Department of Corrections. I didn't serve at a correctional facility.
Yeah. Hi, Eve, by the way.
Yep. Hello, Eve.
All right.
Hello.
If you worked in corrections, didn't you serve at a corrections facility, technically.
It's different wording. I served
yeah,
corrections.
yeah, I know. I'm playing with the double meaning.
Yes. So
Yeah.
with the Department of Corrections, when I was working there, like I said, there was a bunch of different things that you had to kind of get through in your head. So if you ever got charged for something, then you'd be sent out of state for your prison sentence. If someone was on ADSEG can be for several different reasons. ADSEG can be, or it can mean that it was a officer or someone that was a Leo in another area that
Yeah.
was sent there, and it's recent that they were sent there, then they can end up under ADSEG. If they've been there for a long enough time, and or they were a former officer that had been out for a long enough time, and or they were from so far away that there was almost no chance of anyone knowing their history or having been affected by them, then it's possible that they can serve Gen Pop. So, for instance, there was one guy who was a retired police officer from half the nation away that was serving in Gen Pop.
Yeah.
And you have ADSEG. So ADSEG is you're in segregation, but you aren't treated as if you're in segregation. So when you're in segregation, you have reduced rec time, you have reduced access to electronics, you have reduced access to everything enjoyable, effectively. Reduced access to books. So there's a collection of books in segregation. You can get any of those books. If you want any book that's not currently within segregation, you have to write a kite in order to see if that book will be added to the segregation library for you to access.
Right.
You
Okay.
also have reduced visitor time, shit like that. If you're on ADSEG, then you have as much access to electronics as a normal prisoner would. You get as much rec time as a normal prisoner would.
Mm-hmm.
You get as much access to books and things like that as a normal prisoner would. So if you're serving ADSEG, it means that you're effectively serving a normal prison sentence, just you happen to be in segregation. And like I said, there's a bunch of ways that you end up under ADSEG. If you snitch, you go under ADSEG. If you are a former Leo within certain criteria, you go under ADSEG. Also, ADSEG offenders can get face-to-face visitors, whereas normal segregation inmates, when they get visits, it is video and phone. It is not a face-to-face. So there's a bunch of different things that play out. Then you also have what are known as SHUs, Special Housing Units, SHU. And SHUs will have people that would potentially qualify for ADSEG, but they are found to be slightly lower risk of being attacked, as well as chomos. Chomos always end up in SHUs, because that thing that
They're
a
more
lot of
likely
people talk about
to
get absolutely
they're more
stomped
likely
out.
to get yeah.
Yeah. So
Get what they deserve. Let's just call it what it is.
yeah, they will get stomped out in a normal unit.
Yeah.
All right, I'd say that they're always in SHUs. They aren't quite always in SHUs. If they've been serving for a long enough period, then they end up getting moved to Gen Pop. But those offenders tend to end up getting popped back into segregation under protective status for periods of time because they're still more likely to get stomped out. Though those are the ones that are viewed as having been in the system so long that they're less likely to be stomped out than a new Chomo would be. And there's a handful of other things that can get you in a shoe.
What's a shoe?
Special housing.
Special housing unit.
Okay.
SHU. And it's for... So, shoes will have offenders that are sufficiently retarded. There's no easier way of saying it than that. If they're found to have sufficient mental complications, such as, well, various forms of retardation, then they can end up in a shoe. If they're Chomo, they can end up in a shoe. If they are someone that could be under ADSEG but are viewed as a lesser, or being at lesser risk, they can end up in a shoe. If someone is suffering from various forms of insanity, they can end up in a shoe. Or if they suffer from ones that are advanced enough, then they end up going to a special psychiatric prison. Hello, Eve. How goes?
You're talking about a lot of shoes in here, and like, I need photographic evidence.
SHOE shoe. We're talking about special housing units in prisons.
Yeah, shoes, like the ones that go on your feet.
No, like
SHOE is how you spell that. Damn it.
I said that we're saying SHU, not
Oh, well, you said SHOE, so I was confused. It's
yeah,
your fault.
because I said it's not that sort.
Oh. Well,
open your fucking ears, Eve.
I'm sorry, you mumble when you talk. I don't know what else to tell you. Like,
I don't mumble when I talk.
It's the microphone's fault.
Must be.
It's because it's early Saturday morning. There we go.
But yeah, it's you have a bunch of different criteria for how an offender can end up in a shoe. Like I said, though, there is going off paper, which is you're still a former felon. You still can't vote, but you're able to get jobs that you wouldn't have been able to get while you were still considered a ex-con.
Yep. See,
because
my one
now
thing,
those jobs are open back up.
Yeah, my one thing that I would say, I do not like the not being allowed to vote, because, and I know everybody's probably going to disagree, I agree that whilst you're serving your time, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. That is the punishment that society has deemed fit. But not being allowed to vote after you've served your time is taxation without representation.
I would say the furthest that I'd be willing to go with that line of logic is I would be okay if there was some sort of method to reacquire your right to vote. But as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the things that you forfeit upon committing a sufficiently heinous crime.
My understanding, you can eventually reacquire it.
It depends on what it was.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and it depends on what it was that you did. But yeah.
If it was, there's certain crimes that you are able to. So any misdemeanor, you're able to. If it's a felony, then for the most part, it's no. I would be open to, in some cases, having a method of reacquiring, but like I said, I think that it's one that you forfeit by the nature of committing a felony.
But my argument would be, and again, okay, you're being taxed without the, and you're losing one of your ways to redress grievances.
Okay, so I pulled up the DOJ website. Unless it is directly related to election offenses, immediately upon release, most felons regain the right to vote.
I could have sworn when it reached felony charges, you lost it. Some states will allow you to vote in state elections.
Well, that's also the thing. You pulled up the DOJ website. That's federal.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I did not think that they regained them.
Means that states would still be able to legislate how.
And because a lot of elections are technically state elections that just involve the federal government. Actually, I should reword that slightly. Per the DOJ, it just means you can vote for the president. Senators, House of Reps, state equivalents, nope, because that's all state.
So there's 2 states, and then Washington, that allow you to vote in local elections, even when in prison.
See, that I don't agree with, because again, you've lost your right to be part of society for the period of time that society has seen fit for, so you shouldn't be allowed to vote from prison.
There's 20 states that allow you to vote upon release from prison.
That's how it is over here.
There's 17 states that allow you to reacquire your right to vote, that don't just grant it back.
What are the reacquirement details?
Let me see if it mentions this.
Differs state to state.
Yeah, it will differ massively state to state. But
generally every state is going to have a similar, because there's not too much different you can do for reacquiring the right to vote.
Oh, you can, because you can have it might be some states would require a public service element, some states would require going off paper, some states would require both, some states would require...
Some state will make it, depending on what your crime was, you may not be able to, based on...
Right, and even in some circumstances, and I'm pretty sure this is actually true federally, just being released probably means parole might even play a factor. You might be, say, you're on probation or on parole, no voting.
I'm looking at some of the information on this, and there's a bunch of different rules. So some of them, some of the ones that return it after serving your time, they include your parole as serving your time. Others, it is, nope, you're out of prison, you get it back. Some of them require you to do parole, probation, prison, and then go off paper. Some of them have interesting things, like apparently Arizona and Wyoming. If it's your first offense and it's a non-violent felony, then it automatically restores. If it is after your first offense, then you have to go through a method in order to reacquire. And if it's a violent felony, then you have to go through a method of reacquiring. If in Nebraska, formerly incarcerated people for felonies have to wait 2 years after completing their full sentence before they get their voting rights back.
See,
it changes massively.
And that's what I'm talking about, the giving you that chance at reintegration, because it's like in prison, for example, right? It's not the murderers that tend to be the scum of the earth. believe it or not.
It's the Chomos.
Sorry, when I say scum of the earth, I mean the fucking hardcore, right? Because a lot of murders are crimes of passion, rather
it tends
than...
to be the gang-related shit that they...
Yeah, or the armed
really-
blaggers, I mean, the Chomos don't even count as being of the earth unless they're buried under it.
Yep.
Sorry,
No, it's a common sentiment around here.
Yeah, because...
Well, there's a good fucking reason. Have you ever looked into the recidivism rate?
I would hope that
The
prison
recidivism
justice ensured that the recidivism rate was extremely low, because anyone
So-
released
Oh,
after
sweetie,
prison
you think
justice would
So
never want to come back.
you
to
think they're
anyone-
concerned with justice? That's cute.
So,
Hmm?
to anyone that doesn't know what a recidivism rate is, a recidivism rate is it is between 0 and 1, because it's listed as a rate. So it is the chance that a person will reoffend, or the chance that any given offender will reoffend, given the details of their crime. Some crimes have really low recidivism rates. A guy who kills his best friend and his fiance because he finds out that they were fucking each other, and he, in a fit of rage, kills them both the moment that he finds out. Really low recidivism rate.
That's because they generally don't get out of prison, generally.
Well, no, a decent number of them will. A decent number of them will get out after like
20 years, 30 years.
15 to 20 something years, depending on the details of the crime. And some of them will get out much earlier than that.
Because
But-
it was a crime of passion rather than
Yep.
almost...
So-
And let's be honest, if a guy goes in there twice for killing his fiance and his best friend, you got to look at him and say, did you not learn the first time? Like, really?
And that's kind of the thing. That one of the reasons why it has such a low recidivism rate is because that was a very specific situation that caused the crime.
Yes.
So, first off, what's the odds of that repeating itself normally?
His
Second
ex had a
off-
twin.
Yeah. And second off, what's the odds of that repeating when your new partner and your new best friend both know that you served time? Because last time your partner and your best friend fucked each other, you murdered them both.
Fair.
So there's a much lower chance of that set of things happening again, that situation replicating itself.
When you say
Which-
when you say recidivism, are you speaking specifically of the same crime?
Yes.
Or a crime.
So it is normally considered the same crime or the same sort of crime. So, for instance, someone that serves time for sexual assault, if
My
they go
my-
back in for more severe, but of the same sort, so they go in for rape, then it's still considered that. There is a broader version of recidivism that is any return to prison.
Yeah, which is more my concern because, okay, say like take the guy in this example we just put out. In a fit of rage, he kills his best friend and his fiance. Goes to jail for 20 years and he gets out. He now has 20 years of no work history. He now has a felony, a major felony on his record. It's going to be really hard for him to get a job, and will make it much more likely that he would fall into a life of crime, or worse, even homelessness, because he can't find employment.
There's some things that are slightly different than how they're presented there. So, for instance, in the state that I worked as a correction officer, it has a shit ton of industry prisons. Industry prisons get a really bad rap in a lot of places, especially in places that are rather blue, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people hear industry prison and they think, oh, it's modern day slavery. I worked in an industry prison. In order to get a job at an industry prison, the offenders had to qualify for the job, they had to apply to the job, they had to interview for the job, and then if they passed the application and interview, they would be offered the job and they would have the choice whether or not they wanted to take it. They weren't forced to do the job. It was something that they opted into.
So what did they do if they didn't have the job?
So if they didn't take any job and they didn't go to schooling, because that was another option, you could go for schooling, then you got less rec time, you got less yard time, and you spent more time in your cell. But otherwise, you went about your prison sentence as you would.
Okay.
If you got the job or you went to education, you had more time out of your cell, you got additional rec time, you got additional yard time. Also, you earned money while you were working or while you were attending school, which then you could spend on canteen and several other things. You could also... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so what I'm hearing is I can get free school if I come up to your state, commit a crime that gets me a sentence of about 5 years, and then I can go to school for free while I'm in jail.
Pretty much every state has that set up, yes.
Yes.
This is the thing. There's so many people that will say, well, U.S. prisons don't do anything in order to rehabilitate. Motherfucker, there isn't a single prison in the country that doesn't have education. There isn't a single prison in the country that doesn't have drug rehab programs. There isn't a single prison within the country that doesn't have something trying to make it so that you're less likely to reoffend. So, for instance, the prison that I worked at had everything from below high school level courses to one person earned his... I think he got his PhD in economics while in prison.
Cool.
He had to request that because the normal prison doesn't go that high in education. But the thing is, most prisons do have a system where they can do distance learning for certain things. Prisons have trade programs. They have education programs. They have a ridiculous number of different things in order to do it. So you get paid, you get skills, you can get degrees and shit like that while in prison. Then,
Well,
go ahead.
Again, that's a good thing because it's going to be difficult enough for somebody coming out of pokey to get a job, but if you're able to give them, skills such as a degree or some sort of vocational course,
So
that's absolutely what you want because
most prisons have vocational courses as well as academics that I was talking about, and they teach a lot of different skills. There was a metal shop at the prison that I worked for. That metal shop, you could take welding and various other things about how to work in a metal shop before you'd get the job. But then they would train you up, and by the time that you had finished all the training, you were able to qualify to take the certification exams.
as in
For that trade.
Yeah, you would.
So you could become a certified welder.
Yeah, basically you could become a tradesman whilst you were inside. See, and right, and this is the thing. I mean, this is what I mean. You've got to give people that way back into society.
Yep,
I mean,
and that's the thing, that a lot of people have this impression of American prisons because they'll see the recidivism rate of prisons.
Mhm.
A good chunk of US prisons have fairly terrible recidivism rates when you look at them on the face of them. The problem is that isn't showing the full picture. So, for instance, the state that I worked in had really bad recidivism rates when you looked at the rates for the state. But that's because for the average offender, in order to get into prison, they had to commit the crime once. After committing that crime once, they were sent to a court-ordered program that was a redirection program.
right?
So after doing that program, they had to commit the crime again, at which point they would be sent to a second redirect program. They'd have to commit the crime a third time, at which point they would be sent to a third redirect program. They had to commit the crime a fourth time. At that point, depending on the crime, they were thrown in prison. If it was sufficiently minor, they were sent to another redirect program. For low-level offenses, there were up to 7 redirect programs before prison time.
So what you're saying is it's basically there were idiots that couldn't take the hint.
They were people that, by the time that they got prison sentence, unless it's for a severe crime, so if it's for murder, there's no redirect program for murder. If it's for sexual assault, there's no redirect program for sexual assault. But
No.
if it's
like minor theft, that kind of stuff.
If it's theft, if it's drug offenses, if it's burglary without a weapon, or a handful of others, there were a shit ton of different redirect attempts that by the time that you ended up in prison, if they were the sort of person to mend their ways, 9 times out of 10, they had the opportunity. And they have already done so.
Mm-hmm.
So if you looked at the entire system, including those redirect programs and the prison, we probably have a fairly low recidivism rate on average. But it's when you look at just the prison has like a 75% recidivism rate. Because the person's already blown through up to 8 chances to change their ways. And if you've blown through 8 chances to change your ways, you're pretty fucking likely to blow through your 9th.
Yeah.
10th and 11th, yeah.
Yep. So, that's one of the issues that a lot of people have when they're looking at prison stats. They see the recidivism rate and they go, oh, 75% of people return to prison. Well, that prison isn't about rehabilitation at all. Meanwhile, that prison allows you to get up to a PhD, allows you to get trades, and allows you to have a work history your entire prison sentence.
Yeah, right. Generally, you can tell the bad apples.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you've obviously got statistics, but you've also got, by the time people are involved with the criminal justice system, it was like,
they had a shit ton of opportunities to avoid it, and they just kept on going.
Yeah. It's like, well, how many chances do you want?
Yep. And that's one of the things that pisses me off when I hear people talk about U.S. prisons. Because, U.S. prisons, they're designed for several different things. So, the primary purpose of a U.S. prison is to get those offenders away from the people that they victimize. That is the primary purpose of a prison.
Well, yeah. But
You get-
I don't. The one thing that I really don't like is the for-profit prison system. It just will never sit right with me.
I can understand that. There are reasons why it can be good. There are applications where it can be very bad. It depends on the individual instance. So it has to be kind of looked at piece by piece, because all the shit that happens in for-profit prisons that people hate for-profit prisons for happens in normal prisons as well.
Yeah, but you know, you have the for-profit painting it in a light.
Yeah,
you have the conflicting motive when it comes to for-profit.
Well, the thing is that the people running the prison in a for-profit prison, yeah, they're thinking about profit. The people running the prison when it comes to a state-run prison, they're thinking about personal profit.
Now, for-profit prisons, is it profit is by body in the prison? So is that how it works, and why it's so bad is like they get as many people as possible crammed into it?
It works a couple different ways. So you have, depending on the area, one of the ways for-profit prisons get their money is for every person sentenced to that prison, the government pays a portion of what it costs in order to maintain them at that prison. So rather than paying 100% of what it takes to maintain a person in a normal prison, they pay 50% to the prison. Though for-profit prisons are almost 100% industry prisons as well, which is where they get the rest of their funding, where they do the same thing that I just outlined when it came to offenders getting a job in a standard prison. They have jobs that are able to be acquired while at the prison. Offenders apply to those jobs. If they meet the requirements, they're interviewed for those jobs. If they pass the interview, they get those jobs and they work those jobs. A portion of what they would make on the outside doing those jobs is given to them. A portion of it is kept by the prison as part of their maintenance, effectively. So keeping the offenders fed, keeping the facilities lights on, all that shit. Then those prisons also, just like state-run prisons, have what's known as commissary. Commissary is effectively a store that is run by the prisons for the prisoners. So if a prisoner
That's their
doesn't
like day-to-day stuff,
that's where they can get things that... So a prison will have the standard thing of 3 huts and a cot. So in a standard prison, there's 3 meals served within the mess hall. You have a breakfast, you have a lunch, you have a dinner.
If I drop out, I may have lost power.
Copy that.
Oh, okay.
Because we've had stormy weather rolling through for the last couple of nights.
Yep.
And I've had me overhead light blink 3 times.
Okay, so if you do drop out, it was fantastic having you on. Thanks for being on.
It was an absolute pleasure as always, and I do like that we talk about some really random stuff.
I mean,
like I've always said,
football in the Department of Corrections was today.
Yeah, like I said, I always like my show being effectively a bunch of friends show up to a bar and start just jaw-jacking.
Yes.
So when
what a term. Okay.
It comes to the mess hall, you have the breakfast, you have the lunch, and you have the dinner service. And each of those will have like 2 or 3 options for each meal.
Mhm.
So the breakfast, you'll have like a hot cereal, an oatmeal, and you probably have 2 different types of oatmeal. You'll have like bacon and eggs, and then waffles
Mhm.
will be another option. Or you'll have like yogurt, granola, and cold cereal. So you'll have a handful of options for breakfast. For lunch, you'll typically have 2 to 3 options. So it'll be like chicken sandwich, a hamburger, or a salad.
Mhm.
For dinner, you'll have 2 to 3 options. So it'll be like one of them will be spaghetti, one of them will be meatloaf, one of them will be sauteed vegetables. And think of it kind of like a university mess hall where you go through with your tray and you slop on anything that you want.
All of it.
Yeah, if you want all of it, you can take a scoop of pretty much everything there, and that's your meal for that meal.
Yeah.
So you have those served every day in the mess hall. If you don't like the food that the mess hall offers, then you can buy food from the commissary. And the commissary will have like ramen noodles. They'll have tinned meats and fish, only they aren't tinned because tin allows you to make a shiv out of it. So there'll be the pouch-based versions.
Right.
So, you know, those like pouched smoked salmon packs that you can get.
Like you get for your cat.
More the ones that you get for yourself.
Sorry, I like that one. That was a slow burn.
Yeah, more the ones that you'd get for yourself. So you can get like the chicken of the sea
Biscuits.
Chicken.
pouch of salmon and shit like that.
Yeah.
You can also get candy. If you want to get candy, you can buy candy from the commissary.
Sweets.
Yep, sweets, chips, pretzels.
You mean
Shit like that.
crisps?
For you, it would be crisps. For the rest of us,
I'm sorry.
It's
you
okay.
can get that
You're
sort
allowed.
of junk
America,
food.
because America exists, you're allowed to be wrong.
Mhm.
Oh,
You're
for
allowed to get
God's
that
sake.
sort of junk food. And
Kind
then
benevolence from Eve.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we did that for the world. Just allowed you, the rest of you, to be wrong. It's fine.
Yeah, you do
Thank you.
realize without England, you wouldn't exist.
I can acknowledge that, but we kind of outgrew you.
Yeah,
So-
you turned into that.
The child
Do
that
you
will
really-
prove a parent.
Bud, do you really want to
Stomps
play
about.
that game? Do you have to, or do you want to have to thank the French?
Okay, now.
I
I
mean,
don't
mean,
want to do that.
You know why
The French are
I
fine.
started-
It's the French Canadians
Whoa,
that are
whoa,
insufferable.
whoa.
I started this argument with 2 Canadians and a Brit in here, and I knew Sanguine would fall in on my side.
Where are you going with this?
Do you want to have to thank the French? Because without the Normans,
Get fucked. England would have still existed. England existed before the Normans, and it
it didn't
existed
exist
after.
in the same form.
Yes, it did.
And no, it didn't.
A united England, or the United Kingdom of Wessex, existed for near enough 3 centuries before the Norman conquest.
Wessex existed. There were also several other kingdoms within what is now known as the United Kingdom that were separate kingdoms, not just the Irish, not just the Scots, not just the Welsh, but include Mercians, Northumbrians, because both of
Both
those
were
separated out.
subsumed by Wessex 3 centuries
Not-
before.
Not entirely, because
I am not
when-
fucking Welsh.
because when you had the reign of William Godwinson, who was the monarch at the time of the beginning of the Norman invasion, he was still dealing with the Norse incursions from the north of England because the north of England was still considered a Norse kingdom.
Oh, right. Bear with me a moment.
Northumbria had been completely subsumed back into United Wessex. And even then, a good chunk of the language, a good chunk of the culture is derived from the admixture of the Norman influence. And if you want to argue that, then also, not only do the English have to thank the Normans for their contribution to their culture, they would also have to thank the Danes and the Finns. Then they would also have to thank
hold up. The Finns?
The Finns are descended from the same group as the Danes. It was before the
Not
separation.
the Finns.
No, the Finns are something weird.
The Finns were part of the Norse expansion.
Right.
In the same way that the Rus were at best.
Well, the Kievan Rus were Viking mixed in with the native Kievan population. Yeah, the native Slav
the thing is, England existed from, I think it was 952 as its own kingdom.
Well,
a single United Wessex, yes.
Yes, it existed as United Wessex, which, like I said, still had parts of it not English, because parts of it were still under control
Cornwall
of the
still
previous...
isn't England, if you want to get
technical. Cornwall and Devon are Brythonic Celtic, which I'm half.
Yep. So you have you have to thank the Danes. I included the Finns because they are more in line with the Danes.
You're actually wrong.
Swedes.
You're wrong.
Oh, here we go.
Because
separated out more.
No, because if you look at the admix of these islands, right, which is something you said to do, you will find it's basically the angles, meaning the original English.
Well, meaning the replacement English.
No, not replacement.
Secondary.
The Celts were the first tribes.
The Celts were the first tribes.
Celts were the first. The first replacement, were the Angles. Then the third replacement were the Saxons. Then
the Angles and the Saxons all basically the same.
They interbred
of the Belgica people. So
they combined after their incursions because they were
they're all descended from the Belgica people.
Let's just say Germanic tribes and be done with it.
Yeah.
Which is what I was going to say. The next group that he had to also be thankful for were the Germanic tribes, of which the main descendant stock would be the Germans. So we're currently thanking the French, the Germans, the Danes.
The Germans did nothing wrong.
Also, I would like to specify that it would be the Frisian Germanics, not the German Germanics. So also, the Dutch. Well,
Frisian
swamp Germans
are Dutch as well as they are part of Germany as well, because there's the Old Frisia is a landmass that is now split between Germany and...
I thought modern Frisia was only in Holland. Only in the Netherlands. I caught myself there.
Yeah, because Holland is a part of the Netherlands.
Modern Frisia,
North Holland and South Holland.
Yes,
I'm only saying I'm completely unaware of Frisian counties in Germany. I'm not saying they don't exist.
Modern Frisia, which is New Frisia, which is the one that is entirely within Holland or in Netherlands.
which is entirely Dutch.
Yes, which is entirely Dutch, is an area that. So you have New Frisia, which is split between North Frisia, East Frisia, and West Frisia, which is
Right.
in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Then you have Old Frisia, which was a marginally larger bit of land. And Old Frisia is split between
Yeah,
the
I found a
Netherlands
map on Wikipedia.
and
There's
Germany, considering that East Frisia also connects to Lower Saxony, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And Lower
Right,
Saxony.
and can I just say to Eve very quickly, I'm quite enjoying the chaos you've decided to.
So, yeah, you have that. Then you also
I dropped something in
have
the chat that you will probably like, though. So go ahead and continue.
Schleswig and Holstein. Holstein? I think it's
They're
Holstein.
cows, aren't they?
Which, yes, there are cows from there that are very.
I ain't no car flopper, Eve. You know this.
But though
Lore.
you have North Frisia, which also bleeds into that area of Germany, which is part of that area was also part of Old Frisia. And then you have effectively West Frisia was always just within the bounds of what is now the Netherlands. But both East and North, they had portions of them carved away by the Germans. Also, I think the Old Frisian borders stretched up into Denmark.
Not Denmark proper, but let me see if I can handle this German word. Schleswig-Holstein.
That was the one that I just said that was in Germany. I'm saying that
Schleswig-Holstein.
I'm pretty sure that the North Frisian area also stretched up into southern Denmark.
Well, we're talking the same region. When you say Saxony, that's more. I wouldn't say South Germany, but further south than Helgoland. There, I'll use the other term for it.
Like I said, you have East Frisia, which that one was the part that
Dutch
had a
No,
portion
German.
that was also German, because that was Lower Saxony. Then you had the part of North Frisia, which in Old Frisia was part of, or a chunk of Old Frisia was part of that Schleswig-Holstein. And I believe part of that stretched up to the southern bit of what is now Denmark, because I think it went up to the Elbe.
By the modern border, North Frisia is entirely within Germany. However, this region has traded back and forth so many times, so yeah, it's pretty Danish Germany.
Again, like I said, when you're looking at Frisian, because
I have a map right in front of me with the modern borders overlaid.
Yeah.
Right,
and I'm
can
saying
I
that
just make a point here as well? Okay. I was out only on the years. Okay. It was basically the Kingdom of England was formed during the reign of King Edgar, and that was between 959 and 975. It briefly fractured under after his death in 975, and then it was reconstituted in 1016 when Canute became king of all England.
That's one of the Dane kings.
Yes, he was. He was one of the Danish kings.
Yep. And like I said, it had portions of it that weren't England for a very long time, and weren't
England,
part of the UK for a very long time. England was somewhat fractured up until after the complete reunification.
which was in
Which-
1016.
That was the bulk of it, but like I said, again, there was the
Little
Northern-
rebels, Viking tribes here and there, yes.
yes, the
Y-
Northern
your-
England schism or not schism, that's religious. The Northern England breakoff, which was
You're
talking the Danegold.
due to the Danegeld was, or Daneland, the Danelaw area.
Yeah.
And that wasn't brought back in full until after the Normans.
No, which of course I'm not denying, but England was, apart from a few little bits, was already its own kingdom.
Oh,
before
in large
the
part,
Normans.
yes. But at the same time, the culture was entirely different than...
Well, yeah,
English
because
culture.
we were Anglo-Saxon Celtic rather than Norman. And
Yep.
the thing is, the Norman blood is, you'll only really find it within the posh twats.
Yeah, it's in the upper echelons of society.
Yes.
But the point still remains that if you're trying to say, well, America wouldn't have really existed without the English, well, in its current culture and form, sure, but by that extent, England wouldn't exist in the same manner without the French, the Germans, the Dutch, the Danes, the Welsh, the Scots, the Irish.
You do realize that the major the Celts basically either Irish or the Brittonic, as in
Well,
from
you have-
Brittany.
you have a couple
Brittonic, rather.
You have a couple different types of Celts that are all mixed in within the
Yeah,
area.
you've got
Uh,
two major types: the Brythonic Celts and the Irish Celts.
Well, you have
Everybody else on these islands is from them.
I heard
Well,
you
you have-
mentioning the people.
you have the
What?
I heard
Only-
you mentioning the people, the Irish.
that is an atrocious accent. Eve.
So
So
fuck you.
Yeah.
the
I'm trying.
He tried.
You tried, but you take your failure.
the only way that you can fractionate it out into two groups is if you're talking about the two Celtic language groups, because then you have the P and Q Celt, which the P Celt are the ones that are the Welsh are P Celt, the Manx are P Celt, and the Celts from Cornwall are P Celt. And then you have
No,
the Q Celt, which are the Irish and the Scots.
Yeah, basically the Brythonic Celts are the sort of southern and western ones.
Well, they're split up into more groups, and also
Yeah,
part
there's
of
more
the conflict
groups.
using
Oh.
just the major group name that way is then you're also including the
The
Celts
Britons
of
of
Brittany,
yeah.
which are another group entirely. So it ends up being more accurate to describe them either as the more broken down version. Like I said, you could technically use the different Celtic languages as the guidance, but then you end up with P Celt and Q Celt. And
I prefer
then if you break it down into the more specific versions, then, like I said, you have the Welsh, you have the Manx, you have the Cornish, you have the Scots, and you have the Irish.
Right. Here's the thing. Okay. I've had me DNA done.
Mhm.
50%, just under 50% Anglo, just under 50%
Yep.
Brythonic Celt, and less than 1% Baltic.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, I'm basically the two major groups within these lands.
Yep.
So, you know, and that's why I am very much a nationalist.
Oh, I get that, but at the same
Because-
time, you were trying to say, well, we have to thank England for existing, and I'm just pointing out that if you're playing that game,
Well,
there's a lot of people you have to thank as well, and a lot of them
there's
you
a lot.
probably don't want to thank as well.
Well, I mean, if we go in that far back, I mean, we all have to thank the
The Italians, yes.
no, not the no,
No,
not
we
the
have to
Yes,
thank
the
the
Italians.
Why?
Rome carved out much of Western culture.
I'd like.
I
to
mean,
think
the
Adam.
only other civilization from that time you could say rivals Rome by influence today would be Greece.
Yep.
Rome didn't leave any genetic trace. The Romans left no genetic trace on these islands.
Rome left very little, yes. But it left a
Well, that's
cultural
because the Picts killed everyone.
it left a cultural impact. that
Yes, the Picts.
stayed on.
The porridge wogs. That's what we call Scottish people.
But yeah,
'Cause-
there's a shit ton of different groups that end up influencing. So I'm just pointing out that yeah, we could play the game of who has
in
to
that
thank
case,
who, but it's a
you'll-
long fucking list for everyone.
Y'all need to thank the Western hunter-gatherers.
Oh, good lord. Please do not get into a Spurg fight.
We gave them land afterwards. They lost the rest of it due to right of conquest. Fuck them.
Mm-hmm. Sora, me and you were gonna fall out.
What's that?
I can read chat.
I don't hear you over small land.
Nice.
Oh, you can piss right off. About 95% of your land's uninhabitable and uninhabited. It's all bloody snow and mooses.
Not mine. Mine's my natural land is full of gold and silver and culture and
Don't
beautiful
say that.
gilding.
The Spanish will start eyeing you up.
You're Canadian.
By
Yeah, don't mention-
citizenship, yes.
Don't mention the gold, because yeah, like you said, the Spanish will start like their noses start twitching because they can smell it.
Like, may I ask where your ancestral land is, Sora?
I'm born in Romania.
Oh, you're Romanian.
Yeah. that's why I'm making fun of the chat.
Hang on, so you're
Okay, so you say your homeland is full of gold and silver and whatnot. How much of that was originally yours if you're from Romania?
Well,
no, it's
the
probably
middle
in
of
the ground.
so like where I'm from was part of the original Dacian Empire there, the Kingdom of the Dacias. Well,
Mhm.
kingdom if you can call it that, because a lot of
Dacia,
them were
yeah.
tribal. But most of the mines were very central there before the Romans came, so they were already part of those people. Then we got the Romans who brought all sorts of nice walls. Then we got the Byzantine Empire coming in, which left all sorts of beautiful art. And we've
Roman
got the
zero.
superior religion for no reason, just because I feel like saying it.
Superior religion.
Also, for the longest time,
Orthodox
you had
Christianism.
In which case,
Eastern
I'll say
Orthodox.
yes because it's a version of Christianity, and I'm, kind of, I don't give a fuck after that part.
for a
See,
long
I'm
while.
Anglican, so Church of
Do-
England.
For a long while, due to the fact that it was under the Byzantines, it also had some of the most badass defenders.
Hmm.
Because I still love the fact that the Varangian Guard just kept on getting the most savage people from all over the fucking place to come and go, yeah, we'll fight.
speaking of not leaving genetic mark, the Tartars made it, and the Huns made it, and infected Hungary, but nobody from Romania. I'm
So
just saying.
brag about your pullout game, like.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, just on the
weird one.
vinegar stroke, you pull out and finish up a back. I'm sorry. It's. But you've also got Transylvania, so vampires and shit.
Yeah, that's a British invention, or whatever
Are
the
you
hell
guys
Stoker is.
gonna say you don't own Vlad the Impaler?
We don't owe him in the version of.
No, just the guy who the legends
They
were based
own-
off of.
They own the
Sure.
version of him that would
We
rectally
own the
insert
historical
gold
figure
stakes into Turkish men.
Right.
that saved his people from
mean-
rape and pillage.
I
Bram
mean,
Stoker
the
was
dude was
Irish.
hardcore though. I'm not dissing him. Dude was hardcore. Like.
Oh
literally
no,
took-
no, he
Like I
did an eye
said-
for an eye. He's great.
Like
I
I
love him.
said, he would shove dulled wooden stakes up Turkish men's assholes
Yep.
and just leave them there.
Yep.
He had a hard childhood, a tough upbringing, and he did the best.
I'm
he
not
could.
saying any of his actions were necessarily unjustified. Given what he went through, I kind of understand.
Very successful war.
Yeah.
Right.
Poor
Bram,
Turks.
Bram Stoker was Irish, but
That explains it.
technically Irish. But I think at the time he was born, which was 1847,
Look, it's
Ireland was part
it's
of
my
England.
understanding a vampire got really fucking drunk at a bar one night and spilled everything to Stoker, and that's really the problem here. And then he wrote this whole thing using Vlad the Impaler as his muse, based it all off of him.
See,
Poor
Eve,
guy.
I'm really surprised that you didn't go for the Dresden Files version.
That is the Dresden Files version. A
No,
vampire
the
got-
Dresden Files version was not a drunken vampire. The Dresden Files version was the White Court decided, you know what? Fuck the Black Court. Here's all the information on how to kill these motherfuckers.
Okay, but that's less fun. I
I
mean,
don't know.
yes,
Yeah.
it's much more
Fucking
hardcore.
hilarious.
Yeah,
I think it's fucking hilarious that the succubi and incubi
I
were
mean,
so
it's-
goddamn petty. They decided, you know what? Fuck it.
it's how they
We're going
wage
to
war, though.
fuck this person, and then we're going to tell them how to kill every other sort of us.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how they wage war, though, is that they drop information about other. That they'll drop information or wage political wars before they'll ever raise a hand against you. They typically view it as they failed if they have to get physically violent with you.
Yep. The Dresden Files is fucking amazing.
I'm almost caught up, actually. I think I just finished peace talks.
Oh, so you met the Fomori now.
Oh, we've met the Fomori. We've been dealing with the Fomori for a minute, and
Well, you've been dealing with the Fomori, kind of. You didn't really get a
What's
good
her
image
name?
of the Fomori,
their
entirely.
real leader.
but now you've seen the Fomori King as well as the last daughter.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the bit that we're currently talking about, we're talking about the Dresden Files, which is a fantastic series of modern fantasy books based around the only
I recommend.
wizard within the Yellow Pages in Chicago, Harry Copperfield Dresden.
Harry Blackstone, Copperfield, Dresden.
Yes. And
Lord.
it is a fantastic series. The big bad of the current portion was introduced not terribly long ago. The Fomori, which are the evil Irish giants, effectively.
In this interpretation, the Fomori are mostly a band of kind of outcasts and survivors from fallen, groups throughout the ages who kind of band together and pooled their power.
Which is functionally what the Fomori were as the Irish giants, because what they were was they were these fucked up, mismatched group of all of them effectively giants that just one day walked out of the oceans.
Yep.
And started fucking with at that time it was the yet to be known as Firbolg. The Firbolg then came back. The Firbolg were the group that were then the warriors of the first group. Came back, started fighting the Fomori, and then the Tuatha De Danann showed up, and the Tuatha De Danann started fighting the Firbolg and the Fomori, and then they started allying with some of the Firbolg while still fucking over the Fomori. Then there was They
are typically considered the antithesis of the Tuatha De Danann, the Fae. They are their opposite, basically.
Yep. Though there's two Tuatha De Danann kings that were actually half Fomori.
We've been exploring. I do a Change in the Dreaming LARP, and we've been exploring a lot of that lore through that, because whereas the Fae have the changelings, which are like they're half mortal. They're in Change in the Dreaming, they are Fae souls trapped in mortal bodies. In that interpretation, the Thalain are the Fomori equivalent. They are the antithesis of the changelings. They are everything that the changelings are twisted. They have an equal and opposite, whereas like a knocker has goblins, as their opposite, for example. Boggans have boggarts as their Fomori opposite.
See, that was one of the things that annoyed me when it came to changeling, because the brownies and boggarts are some of the most interesting, or one of my favorite things from Legend. Because do you know the difference between a brownie and a boggart?
In Changeling, yes. Isn't a boggart like a spirit?
So like both brownies and boggarts are a type of household fae. The thing is that they're the exact same type of household fae.
So brownies, like a poltergeisty kind of creature.
More of a, like you've heard the stories of like cobbler elves. Those would be brownies.
Yep. So
they kind of come in and fix and clean and do things in people's houses.
So a brownie would be a household fae, but when you got a house, you would have to make sure that you respect the brownies. Because if the brownies were respected, the brownies would help you with shit. So they would tend your fields, they would feed your animals, they would mend your clothing, fix your shoes, sweep your house, polish the wood, polish the metal. They'd do all that really nice stuff around the house.
Oh.
Speaking of Dresden Files, at one point, Harry actually earns the respect from some of the Fae and gets his own like cleaning service of brownies.
Oh my god, so cute.
Yeah, but the catch is he can't tell anyone that they're, because people ask about, how do you keep your house so clean? Just I have a cleaning service. That's it. It's all he tells them. He doesn't tell them anything about it, because if he mentions it, they'll disappear.
Yep. The thing about the brownies is that brownies need to be respected, and they need some sort of repayment. So in tradition, that repayment could just be food left out for them. And
honey and milk at the end of the gate.
effectively. So it would be various types of food. Milk is fairly common. Honey is fairly common. Leaving out mead was fairly common. Beer, fairly common. So you'd leave out food and drink for the brownies, and then you would make sure that you never insult them. Don't lie to them. Sometimes you needed to keep the existence of your brownie personal. Sometimes it didn't really matter. But as long as you respected them, you followed the rules for how they wanted to be respected, they would help you out, and they would be fantastic.
What happens if you lie to them?
So that's what I was just about to get into.
Oh,
so
okay.
brownies and boggarts are the same type of fae.
Yep.
Brownies and
a
boggarts
fae is basically a supernatural.
Yes, supernatural creature.
Yeah.
A fairy,
That
basically.
is-
But don't call them fairies. They don't like that.
It's innately tied to magic, and in the Irish tradition, the fae are effectively a secondary creation of the Tuatha De Danann, the Irish gods, after the Irish gods went from being the gods living among man to the gods below. And they created Tir na Nog, their own realm beneath the lands. And then the realm was split into different realms by the Tuatha De Danann, and then the Tuatha De Danann made their own sort of interesting servants to their liking, that as the Tuatha De Danann spent more time away from people, their servants became less and less humanoid and started having weirder and weirder logic, because the Tuatha De Danann determined how each of their planes worked. And then they started giving the ability to make their own planes to their favorite servants. So Tir na Nog became even more confusing. So there's parts of Tir na Nog that time travels at a normal speed. There's parts of Tir na Nog where you spend a minute in Tir na Nog and 100 years have passed in the real world. There's some that you spend 100 years in Tir na Nog and you come back and it's like 30 seconds later. So time functions differently in Tir na Nog. Bunch of different weird, interesting things that can happen in Tir na Nog. But brownies and boggarts, same type of fae. The difference is that brownies are the content versions of them. Brownies, when they're disrespected, when they're lied to, when they aren't rewarded for their good service, they get pissed. And they change. They change into boggarts. So, well, brownies would mend various things around your house and make sure that your clothes are in good repair, that your animals are healthy and well fed, that things are working out well for you. Boggarts do the exact opposite of every one of those acts. So if a brownie will mend your shoes, the boggart will poke holes in them. If a brownie will repair tears in your clothes, boggarts will tear holes in your clothes. Brownies will feed your animals. Boggarts will make your animals sick. And it goes on and on and on. The more disrespected, the more enraged the boggart is, the more potent the boggart is. So there's one particular boggart from legend and lore that was so poorly treated that she went on a murderous rampage. The first thing that she did was she threw a chair so hard at a woman, she crushed them.
Oh, hardcore. Right.
And I'm not talking like a big, heavy wooden chair. I'm talking, you know those woven chairs that the Irish have?
Yes.
She threw one of those so hard it crushed someone.
That's hardcore. But can I just throw something in here? Boggats and brownies are two different folklores.
Let me quickly double check because I remember there's
boggats are Scots. Sorry, brownies are Scots. Boggats are English.
Let me quickly double check because I remember there being bleed over between the two, which is where I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I'm thinking of that crushed the woman with the chair. Let me quickly find it then. So it was Maggie Moloch was the one that I was thinking. And let me quickly double check because I'm almost positive that I'm remembering this story right. Maggie...
I'm not saying the story's wrong. I'm saying that the actual folklore that you've got is the brownies are Scots folklore. Scots and Irish folklore. And boggats are English folklore.
Yep, the thing is that they had massive bleed over, and there was also a tradition of having similar sounding things that were spelled differently. So, for instance, and similar beings that
everybody
were known
stole
by
everything
different
from
names.
each other.
Yeah. So, for instance, you have the Kusith, which is effectively the Irish version of the black dog.
Yes.
And they have almost 1-for-1 overlap between the two. Though,
Yes.
like I said, the thing was that Maggie Moloch was the one that I was thinking. Maggie Moloch, when she ended up snapping, she had been serving this one master with her son for the longest period of time. They had done so rather handedly. Her son was dim. She was trusting, but more intelligent. And a human killed her son, then lied to her. And then she found out. So she started murdering everyone in the town.
Until I started shooting.
Yep. She started murdering everyone in the town. And most of the time, the way that it worked was once that change had occurred, there wasn't really a reverting back, but it would be that that being would just hunt down one person.
Yes.
Or one family.
Right, okay, hang on. I've just found about the legend. It's Maggie Moloch.
Yep.
Is the name of the brownie.
Yep.
Basically, what had happened is, right, and I'm reading off of Wiki here. Okay, so one night a girl went up to the mill as she did not have enough flour for a wedding cake. Because the miller had already left, she snuck in to grind the flour herself. She put on a pot of water to boil as she began grinding the meal. The Dobby who guarded the mill, Brownie Claude, who was Maggie Moloch's son, heard the commotion and he found the audacious maiden hard at work. Keeping his distance, he asked for a name, and the girl said, "Oh, I'm Mathghamhain," which means, "Oh, I am me myself." He again asked for a name, but again she said Mathghamhain, myself. As he approached her, she threw boiling water at him. He fled to his mother, Maggie, who asks who wounded him. Fatally burnt by the boiling water, he gasps out, "Methane, me myself," as he was told. Maggie later finds out the trickery of the girl as she regularly brags to her friends of how she outsmarted a brownie. Maggie overhears the girl one day whilst walking past her window and takes vengeance. She throws a stool with such force that it kills the girl dead on the spot. There you go. So, same story, a different way of. Yes?
Yep. So, yeah, she had that transition between the benevolent to the vengeful. And
Yes.
in the full version, she continued just killing people because
Right.
she was so enraged by it.
Well, she was enraged because that evil coward killed her son.
And had lied to her and to her son.
Yeah, and
You know, his mistake was he didn't ask a third time. Because everybody knows if you say it 3 times, it's true.
God damn it, Eve. But yeah.
What?
So
Thrice I say and done.
There's a transition between the benevolent and the malevolent.
yes.
And with that particular one, because it was so egregious, it wasn't just one target. It wasn't just one family. It was everyone had enraged her. And there are other examples of them going off of similarly extreme cases where they would just go off into the Highland and then they would kill random passerbys rather than focusing on anyone.
Yeah.
But she also went on to steal children and do shit like that. She was really fucking pissed off.
We've all been there.
Yep. So it's one of those things that it's a fantastic thing to go for. And it's one of those sorts of stories that I think that everyone who intends to be in a leadership position should be forced to learn. Because a lot of bosses turn brownies into boggarts.
Yeah, because
yeah.
Because if you treat people basically it seems to be don't piss off the people that are helping.
Yep.
You know?
But I did just realize what time it is.
Yes,
Shall we go around the horn for parting
Mr. Wolf?
words?
Yes, if you like.
Who wants to go first?
I have a book recommendation.
Oh, go ahead.
So it is a young reader's book, so it's kind of for little kids. But a really good Boggart story is The Boggart by Susan Cooper. There's the sequel, Boggart and Monster, and apparently there's a third one that came out a couple years back, but I don't recommend that one. I haven't read it. So, but the first one for sure, it's a lovely tale about a Boggart who, over the years of being in a particular castle with a particular man, has grown attached, and how after being forced out of a Scottish castle and into modern day Canada, how things have changed. So it's very good. It's a really good story. And it goes into a lot of folklore and stuff. It's very sweet.
That sounds nice. What sort of age range is it aimed at, if I may ask?
Oh, under 12 probably, or like 8 to 12.
Sort
I'm
of
guessing.
that.
So young, like middle grade readers.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the time. It's around the area. I think around the timeline it came out that kind of age range didn't really exist. It was more like, oh, this is a young reader's book versus like an adult book. There wasn't really that teenage novel versus children's novel.
Yeah, there wasn't the breakdowns.
Yeah, that's how it is now. But yeah, I mean, if I still own the book, both of those books, and for an adult reader with a good reading speed, it'll be over very quickly. Like you can read it no problem with it within a day with breaks and like not really paying attention to it. But it's just a really nice story, and it's a little sad, a little bittersweet, but it's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if
Right.
you've read Susan Cooper before. She does the Darkness Rising books.
I
This
haven't.
is a
I've
bit
never
for
even
younger.
heard of her. Oh, sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Since we were talking about boggarts, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So let's go Spud next.
Go Bengals and fuck the 49ers.
Nice.
Yeah.
That just reminded me of what fucking news station was it where it was, I want to say an Australian news station where they're talking about football for some reason, and the woman ended up calling them the 69ers. And the two guys immediately chimed in, that'd be a very different sport.
Yes. Well, that'd be that'd be the lingerie
The
football
lingerie bowl league.
league. Yeah.
But then let's go Donkey. I heard you making noise back there.
To contribute to Spud, I hope you do not come to Arrowhead this year.
Yes, we do.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You lose to the Ravens.
You're just pissed because we tend to do well against you.
Silence.
You know, you with all your Mahomes magic.
And then let's go Adam. You still there with us?
Adam.
I think he might
Oh
have
my
zonked
god,
out
Adam
for
was
that.
here the whole time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he might have zonked out though. So,
Yeah.
Eve,
Adam, hello.
I was just gonna say, if you want to read some really good fiction that has a lot more of this fairy brownie shit, well, not so much with brownies, but just fairy stuff in general in it. Iron Druid series is really good. So I know
Yes,
both the
I read
Iron
the
Druid
first book.
and the Dresden Files are both very
and the
good.
Dresden Files. Dresden Files takes a few more liberties with it, but
Yep.
it's still pretty close to what the actual stories are, and has some really interesting lore in and of itself. But Dresden Files gets a little more broad with the lore too.
Iron Druid does more of the more traditional view of it, whereas the Dresden Files does very much more the Shakespearean view of the Fey courts.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. Because the
It's
Dresden
totally
Files,
a
they
series
are.
of bought the first book because of the cover and not the content. It's gonna put it out there.
I mean, the rest of them are good. If you liked the first one, they
Oh
just
yeah,
get better.
I'm sure it was a good. I second your recommendation a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Sora got it, thinking it was a bodice ripper. She was slightly disappointed, but still had a good time.
Yeah, kind of.
Really?
It's okay. It's good.
See, I understood what you were saying,
Oh,
Sora.
And one more thing. Since we're wrapping up here, everybody go over and see Polly, Far, and Sam streaming on Noir Bar because they're live. They just went live a few minutes ago. So
Oh, nice.
before we're
And
leaving here, go see them.
Very nice.
that should have been everyone else, so I will leave off with my standard of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
Night, everyone.
Night.
Donkey, say good night before I click this
Good
button.
night.
There we go.
Nah.